Welcome back, everyone. We are here to share with you our primary topics and things we're going to focus on for the month of October. Topics this month are around the phrase that Kellie really likes to say, inspire, don't require. We're also going to give a little bit of an overview over prompting and then give you some strategies that you can use at home and some things we're also going to work on in the school setting.
So inspire, don't require. That essentially just means we are giving the students and our children opportunities, modeling, we're inviting them, but we're not requiring that they do something our way or the first time. So if I'm asking someone to join an activity and we're not getting that buy-in right away, that doesn't mean that I go over and I make them by maybe grabbing their hand and, oh, you do it like this. I'm not necessarily requiring that they do that. They can sit back, they can watch, I can play with it, I can draw, I can do the art project. And hopefully the longer and the more we make it look fun to them and invite, they'll want to join themselves naturally. So what entices? So things that are new, things that they haven't seen before, they're unusual. We're doing it in a weird or funny way. It's unexpected and it needs to be meaningful for them. So those are activities and ways that we can get our child to join in on what it is that we're doing, whether that be an art project, an academic project, a game, walking down the hallway, any of those things. What doesn't entice? Boring, mundane, slow paced. It's something that they see all the time. It's expected or it's frequent. So that being said, of course, if your child likes routines and forms and sticks to routines, they might enjoy participating in some of those more expected routines because they know what to expect and it doesn't cause frustration because they've been able to figure out how to do it and do it well.
So prompting, that is going to be what we are addressing this month a lot. And prompting can range from a verbal prompt to a visual prompt to a gestural prompt to a physical prompt. And it's basically our way of scaffolding or structuring a task to give a learner just enough supports to be successful. The overall goal is to reduce our prompting level so that the end behavior, the student is independent as possible.
So we like to work from least to most in the prompt hierarchy. And I think it's easiest to jump in there and do too much and try to get something done for the student or your child. And we usually know what they need. However, the goal is to start with the least amount of prompting possible to get the desired response or reaction, and then move on to more if needed. So for instance, we might start with just, maybe as we're enticing and inspiring them to join, we might just simply stop and wait. Time is really uncomfortable for people. So when we look at that time piece, we're talking at least 15 seconds. So think of it like this. Stop and pause till you're uncomfortable, and then wait some more. And then at that point, move on to another prompt. So the levels of prompting do look slightly different depending on what skill we're targeting. So we'll add a couple of prompt hierarchies onto our Class Dojo so you can look through those and see them. But they are a little bit different just depending on what we're doing and what therapists or other clinicians like.
So for physical prompts, these can range from a tap on a shoulder. So if, say, we're walking down the hallway and we're working towards that independence and the student is walking past the door and they might turn into that doorway, we might give a tap at the shoulder to redirect their path. Another example would be when we're teaching a student to wash their hands, we might start with providing them with hand over hand or for like prompting at their hands to get them to make bubbles within their hands. Another example would be, say we're working on clothing management and assisting the student in finding that zipper to get started, to initiate, to pull down. And then other times where we see more of that physical prompting, hands-on prompting, is say we're working on a craft project and working on drawing shapes and lines, using scissors, those kinds of things. We might see more hands-on with the student when they are manipulating those school materials.
So there are some pros to using hand over hand or more hands-on prompting. And there's more, then there are also cautions. So we're not saying cons, but we're calling them cautions. And for us within our practice here in the school, we're really working to be as hands-off as possible. Excuse me. So we're really not wanting to get to that full physical prompting. And in fact, on most of the prompt hierarchies that we're using, you won't see full physical prompting. We just are really trying to back off from that. So pros, you can grade the amount of touch you need to give someone to meet their needs. So for instance, Jen was saying with route finding, it might just be a tap on the shoulder. That might be all they need. It can also raise their level of alertness. So it alerts them to what it is you want them to do, what you're expecting from them, that type of thing. It can add layers of guidance when you're learning a new skill, especially something that takes hand manipulation, like zipping up a coat or something like that. And it also can absolutely be required for the safety of the child or someone else. And so that's something we kind of want to be sure we're not muddying the water here. If safety is ever a concern, you do what you need to do to keep that child safe, and we will absolutely do the same thing. So that's not a prompt. That is, we need to keep the child safe, so we're going to do what we need to do. And so that might happen if, maybe at home you're in the parking lot with your child and they go out in front of the car. You're going to grab them and make sure they don't go any farther. And that is different from a prompt. So we just want to be sure that that's clear. Safety is its own thing. Cautions: your child may become reliant on physical assistance and lead to prompt dependence. So prompt dependence is a phrase that we use a lot, and it happens when the child is not responding to the cues that we're providing for them. So for instance, a cue might be hi, and we want them to wave. That's a cue. But they might be waiting for an additional layer of prompting before they respond. That is prompt dependence. Reduces problem solving and initiation from the child. It can blur the lines of personal boundaries, and it's not child-led. So we're really wanting to be sure. Part of the reason we are backing off and really trying hard not to use too much hand-over-hand assistance is it does reduce the autonomy of the student. And so we want to always have that in the forefront of our mind, what's comfortable for them, so that we have that as an awareness.
So again, Kellie talked about safety, and that ultimately, safety and independence are really long-term goals that we have for all of our children. And so, yes, there may be a time where we really do need to put hands on a child to keep them safe. However, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute. I would say ensuring a child creates a craft that might look like an example on Pinterest is not something we need to be hand over hand for. That is not child-led, that is adult-led. And we're teaching the child that they can't do this thing that we're asking them to do. Okay, so we want to get rid of all these Pinterest-worthy craft projects and really focus on the process. What is the end goal? Is the end goal to teach a child how to use a marker and use a pair of scissors? Yes. The end goal is not to ensure that they can cut out very complex shapes, because that's not the reality for most children, or even me. No. Some of those Pinterest activities are way out of reach for even adults. So again, we want to make sure that we're promoting a child's autonomy and that they can participate for as long as they want, for as long as they choose. And so again, it's meaningful and fun and not frustrating.
So prompt enough, but not too much. So it's hard to find that balance that promotes the child's autonomy while keeping them safe and teaching them new skills and routines. So we just constantly want to be learning from our children and learning from what we're doing, providing feedback to ourselves, and making sure that we are finding that balance as best that we can.
So for this next section, we're going to share with you some strategies that you can use at home and things that we're also working on in the school setting to promote a child's independence. And they are visual, they might be structural, and they might involve language. But the reality is they're probably a combination of all three. So for some visual strategies, we can use pictures, we can use objects. If we're working on trying to teach a child their personal boundaries, say at a table or at the carpet or at their desk, we can also use tape around that area and start teaching them, like, this is where you're supposed to be. We can provide demonstrations. So that could be me demonstrating in real time the activity, or it could be, showing a video on YouTube. And again, reducing that visual clutter. It's really important when we're presenting tasks to students that they know exactly what we're asking them to do. So if it's in a very busy environment, or we're giving them, say, a whole bucket of beads to string, that is a lot of visual clutter, and they might not know what we're asking them to do. Another thing that we can work on is adding structure. So this can be like structure for stabilizing an object. So using Velcro, using tape, those kinds of things can help so that we're not, holding on to the student's hand and the object at the same time. Let's stabilize that object so that it is there for them to participate and engage with, and we are, again, more hands-off. Routines bring order. Routines bring order to our lives. They probably bring order to your own, and they're going to bring order to our kids. So if we can work on tasks that they need to complete in the context of the routine, they're going to likely develop those skills faster. And they're going to, again, know what we're asking them to do. Say each time they walk in to the classroom, they got to hang up their coat. Let's be consistent. Every time we're going to start teaching that. We also need to look at breaking down tasks. So say, for example, we have a worksheet that has lots of problems on it. That might be way too much for that child, and it could lead to just them shutting down. Why don't we instead give them 2 or 3 problems? And we can work on completing that activity throughout the school day, but we might do 3 problems at a time. And again, if something is not working, restructure. We don't have to be tied just because we think something's going to work and it's the best idea ever. There comes a point where you have to let go of that and come back to restructuring the activity.
So language prompts include things, or strategies include things like slow down. This is something I have to remind myself of all the time. So be aware of what your habits are within your language, your own language, and the way you produce it so that we can modify it appropriately. Present one thing at a time. It's so easy for us to have this big project in mind, and we're going to say, all right, we're going to cut it out, and we're going to put on 12 beads, and we're going to color a rainbow, and then we're going to do a jumping jack, and then we do all these things, and our kids are way back at the first step, and by the time we've gotten done with it, then they forgot. So sometimes it's not that our students aren't wanting to follow our directions, it's that we gave too many. So slow down and remember to present one thing at a time. And then within that presentation, we're doing those other strategies that Jen has already talked about. Within that first piece, we can use visual strategies and those types of things within it. Repeat the direction. You can repeat it in a different way. You can repeat it a little bit with a little bit different wording, whatever works for the student. Give extra processing time. That's that wait time. So wait till you're uncomfortable and wait a little bit longer. Check for understanding. So we can do that by, looking at what they're doing, having them process back what they're doing, that kind of thing. And this is my soapbox. Avoid the prompt say. So if I'm walking down, this is probably the one I see the most. If I'm walking down the hallway and I wave at a student, I say, hi, somebody inevitably says, say hi to Mrs. Doyle. So then we haven't given them the wait time. We haven't given them the processing time. We've given them too many things to respond to. We're kind of overloading that child right away. And so then they end up responding to the prompt, say, rather than the cue that I gave them, which is the wave. So again, avoid that prompt, say. It's something that very frequently leads to prompt dependence. So this is what it could look like. Mrs. Doyle's walking down the hallway and I say, hi. Somebody who's with the child taps the child, hi. And usually that's what the child will do. Same thing with any other sort of verbal response. Get the child's attention, direct, repeat what you want the child to say without say.
So as a recap, inspire, don't require. Let's invite the students in to participate, model, give them the wait time, use those strategies. Let's make things fun and meaningful to them. Let's work from the least to most level of prompting. And let's start at the least amount that we think a child might need, and then work up towards the most. If something is not working, let's change it. Our teaching should not be static. It's an ongoing process of assessment, evaluation, implementation. And we want the child to lead. So again, let's follow their lead. Let's promote that autonomy and independence. And as Kellie said, safety bucks the rules. Okay. Always think of safety.
So your homework, a few things for you guys to think about as you move throughout this month with these topics. Observe your own activities and your own levels of prompting. Where are you jumping in the most to help? What does your help, which are prompts, what do those look like? Are there any of these strategies you would like to try at home? Again, contact us on Class Dojo if you want to brainstorm on strategies. Send us videos. We are more than willing to watch and give feedback.
And then for our homework, we are going to implement some new strategies that we've been working on and also go back and retrain on. And I think the more that we continually implement these strategies and teach staff, we think that we'll see more level of independence within our students. Again, I'm going to show some different fine motor task boxes. They're probably not like ones that you've seen, like the pegs that go in the box. These are a little bit different. And I'm going to show staff on how they can make their own. And as we talked about too, we're going to share some additional resources on Class Dojo, like the prompt hierarchies as well.
And lastly, reminders, we'll have lots of stuff on Class Dojo. We're continually adding to it, monthly videos and any of these additional materials. Use it for feedback. We most definitely welcome your feedback on these videos. Like somebody might say, this one is running a little long. So we welcome that feedback. And what are your topics of interest? Is there anything you'd like to see or hear from us? Just let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.